Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
All right, we got episode 2 of our new Q&A. We're kind of figuring this thing out. We want more questions. We get a lot of questions, but we'll be putting up posts to get more questions in there. We'll highlight you if you ask a question. We'll figure something out there. But Brett, I got 3 questions. The first 2 kind of go together that people have hit me up over the years. They kind of wanted me to ask you these questions, so this is a good platform for it.
Yeah, Q&A Monday, guys. I think we talk about it all the time. Is we don't know everything, but we're here to help. Like if there's something you think we might have some more knowledge on than you, or something you're just curious, like maybe we're doing the same thing you are, or we're doing a different variation and why we choose to do it this way or whatever. We've always said like we're a pretty open book, and I think that's one of the things has enabled us to build like a Scrap Life and to have, you know, a decent amount of people that appreciate the podcast stuff we put out. Is just because we kind of just tell you our version of what's worked for us, and we're trying to steer you clear of what hasn't worked for us or how to avoid those mistakes. So if you have questions, by all means, fucking send them in, you know, text them, email them, put them in the notes or the reviews of the podcast, anywhere you can think of. Like, feel free. We're on social media. We peruse the social media pretty hard. We'll find your question, but fire away. We're always here to we enjoy this part of it. So,
and even the banter of like if you have an opinion on our answer, or if you're like, if you can add to it, or like, hey, what about this? Like, we're always here to learn too. Like that's
you're not gonna hurt our feelings.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Like you won't hurt our feelings because I'm a firm believer I could always do something better. So I want to hear it from you guys too on the other end of it.
Absolutely.
So this is a 2-part question that kind of go right together. Basically, how do you identify and promote some of your key employees and decision makers? Very similar question follows up right after it. I'll just ask it too.
Okay.
How do you identify key family members in a family business and handle the delicate conversations from family members that aren't performing in a family business? I think that is
it's like 2
relevant.
questions though. Like I think the first question is how do you identify like key people? Mm-hmm. And you know, the beautiful thing about what's going on right now is I think that the U.S. economy is slower right now, and we've always had our most luck hiring people. Is we're always been on a growth trajectory, right? So we're always trying to grow our business. Some years we have exponential growth. Some years it's a little bit less, or it's a little bit of growth. We're always trying to grow. So you find these economic times like today where maybe it's a little slower in some of these other industries. There's a lot of good people out there. So the first things first before you promote within is you got to get good people into your business to begin with, mm-hmm. right? So you're always on the hunt. You're always on the lookout. Someone who's already got a job. And a lot of times we promote people that aren't even in, quote unquote, our industry. That's more of our preferred route, is we want to bring them in, show them what we're doing, show them how we do it, and then kind of teach them our way. We're not opposed.
You want them to be green. You want them to be.
We like that for a lot of our positions. Now, certain areas that we've kind of looked at, we've kind of went targeted. Let's say when we hired one of the guys that was one of our bankers, right? Like mm-hmm. we knew we needed that component to our business. We went looking for it. We knew that the guy was going to be good, and he was ready to be ready for a change out of banking, mm-hmm. and so we knew we needed help on that side. So we went kind of looking for that.
For a banker background,
right? But so we don't necessarily do that, say, on the scrap side or any of our businesses, really, unless they're CDL truck drivers. But what we do is we try and find good people initially and get them in. Not everybody works out. We do the best we can. We sort the best. We filter the best mm-hmm. we can. And once we get them in. And then it really just comes down to heart. Like when you see someone, they show up on time. They care. They want to learn more. They have a thirst for the next thing. They're interested in what you're doing. They're trying to push to the next level. The next level for them could be starting out. You're running cans. The next level for them could be like, I actually am trusted to have the till. Now I can mm-hmm. buy scrap. Mm-hmm. And the next level after that, it might be like, okay, I can run this this recycling center in this town for this company, right? And so there's levels to every single game, but you just want to see somebody that comes in and they care and they show up and they're judicious. They treat your money, your time like it's their money, their time, and they work hard. And when you're a small business, say when you're 20 people or 10 people or whatever, it's easy for you as the owner to have really good eyes across the board to see who's doing what and who's doing it well. Because you're small. I mean, you have eyes. You're doing a little bit of everything yourself, right? As you grow, the key is that the people you trust their opinion, that they give you solid opinions, right? So you teach them by you bringing them up, you teach them what to look for, what you looked for in them to bring them up to management level, right? So then you say you filter that down. And at the end of the day, when you bring people up to a management position, they've got to be super comfortable with their job. They got to be comfortable enough that they're willing to train the guys below them to bring them up with them, right? Because if you promote people that are afraid of losing their job or that are, let's say they're ego-driven, they want the credit, or let's say that they're always on the defensive, they're nervous that if they train somebody, that it's going to be a wrap for them, that you're just trying to get them out. So it's your job as you bring up the first level of management to say, okay, everybody here, you're good, right? You're here for a reason. Now let's train the next level. And that's how we're going to grow.
Yes.
But you got to keep them in a position that they understand that by them training the next person, you're not going to lose them or you're not trying to get rid of them. And I think that filters down to the next level and to the next level,
Well,
right?
that goes into your culture. It really does, because I think it's a pretty common place for people to be fearful of losing their job because they train someone else. But if you create a culture where they know that's not going to happen, they just know the culture here is like the better I can make my team, the better I can be too. Because, one thing you're going to see in some employees when on their way up, they're going to care about themselves almost more than, they're going to care about themselves more than the company, as they should. They should care about their own well-being and their family. When I was younger in this, Brett had got me to buy in, and I really cared about the company tremendously because I saw the growth potential within the company, but also myself, and that's me worrying about myself. And I wanted for a long time people to care about like a 50-50, and I just know now that's not really sustainable. But when you get a guy that's like a 90-10, that ain't gonna work either, because he needs to compare. It needs to be closer to a 50-50, because the guys I'm looking for are the guys that care, the guys that just give a fuck like about what happened. And it might be a small thing that happened that went sideways, but they care so much about it. They
care enough to learn what went wrong,
Yes.
so they don't make that mistake again, right? So another part of finding and identifying key people is not about people that make mistakes. It's about people that learn from the mistake. So if you make the mistake 3, 4, 5 times, there's a problem, right?
Yes.
That means you didn't take the lesson from the first one and learn something from it. So one of the key characteristics that we look for is not that you've made mistakes, just did you make the same one 3 times, right?
Yeah.
If you made a mistake, you learn from it. You didn't have that let that happen again, because the nature of business, the nature of our business is we're operating heavy equipment. So there's a safety component to it where we have, pretty generally tough labor type positions, whether it's, plas cutting, running hand tools, heavy lifting. So you're always you're identifying people that aren't afraid to work hard on some of these like entry level type positions. But there's various mistakes that can be made. The goal is we have the safety meetings to try and eliminate as many of them as possible. And then if somebody makes one, how do you keep them from happening, right? And if those people they learn from it, not only do they learn, they teach the next guy. Hey, I did it this way. Don't do this. Like this is this is some of the pitfalls, because now all of a sudden they're becoming a teacher, a coach within your business. And I think you identify people like that enjoy what they do, and they're willing to train the next person, so they're just as good as they are. Well, now you're onto something. That's a person that you can actually invest in and move them up, because they're not afraid. They know they got something, right? They believe in themselves. They got a skill set that's pretty hard to beat, they feel. And so they're like, yeah, they want to share it because they've already moved on to the next thing in their mind, what they think they can do. Mm-hmm. And if you give them that opportunity and and the flip side is if you don't give them that opportunity, then they're going to do that for somebody else.
Yeah.
So you have to give them a shot. You've got to give them a shot and investment. And like it goes back to it, they don't always work out. But you gotta recognize it quick.
And there might be times where you don't identify that person either. I mean, maybe we didn't identify that person, and then and we don't know of all those people that maybe we didn't. But we try to get better as a collective team to be like, hey, who's out there is like really killing it for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where the communication is key. Because the other side is like you don't know, like if you looked at all the employees that maybe left, in a good way, then maybe they left to go because they had better opportunity somewhere, for them. And maybe the fit just wasn't there because sometimes it's just the fit isn't going to, they are better off somewhere else and we're better off with someone else in their place. But I think just giving yourself the grace to realize you're not perfect on maybe some people you try to put up into that higher level that maybe it wasn't the right fit, or B, people you kind of missed out on, and just figuring out how that process flows and how you identify the right people quicker and how you get them trained up, efficiently to do it the right way,
I think the last part of that question is they have to know that you have a vision to build. Because builders want to build with other builders, right?
Yeah.
There's some solo entrepreneurs out there, for sure. But most builders, they want to be a part of something. They maybe not necessarily don't want the risk of doing it themselves, but they want to be a part of the risk-taking process with somebody, right? And I think that's why franchisees is so, those businesses are, because they're like, they are entrepreneurs, but they don't necessarily want to do everything it takes to launch something from scratch, right?
It's less risky.
And so the next level of that too is just there's just builders. There's people that are really good at building systems. There's good people that are really building people. There's people that are really good at just physically building things, constructing things, and constructing SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures of how to do things. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of build your whole company with individuals that are builders that want to build, but you've got to give them a vision of where you're trying to get to, some larger goal that they can see themselves as a part of that. And I think that's how you retain those good people. So you identify them, you give them opportunity, and then you show them the vision. Say, hey, this is what I'm trying to get to. This is where I need you to help me do this, and I want you on the team. And that's how you keep them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you've done a good job for our team. We see that vision, and we're able to trickle that down to people that we've identified,
Our key guys are builders. Like, that's what they are.
That's my favorite part of it. I like to build a new thing.
Things.
And we always got a new project from Brett's brain,
Yeah, we are not afraid to build.
Second part of that question was about the family dynamic. Do you want to touch on that, or is that for another? Okay.
No, let's do it. So read the question again.
It's the same thing. How do you identify key family members in a family business to get up to the next level? But on the flip side of that, how do you handle people in a family business that aren't performing?
I think in a family business, I feel like most small businesses that are scrap yards or recycling companies or auto salvage or whatever, they probably all started out as a family business, right? Either that or a very strong friend business. Mm-hmm. And so our business was no different. My grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncles, all the things. And I think if the business can only support so much family, depending on its size, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the financials are what start the separation, right? At some point, there's a dynamic in there of which people in the family are performing that are actually moving the needle to create money for the business, right? And at the end of the day, if you're not one of those people, then you're probably going to be one of the first to go.
Okay.
The second is, can you get along? So you are a person that can move the needle financially, but do you have the capacity to get along with who's ever in charge, or whoever the owner is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's in my case growing up, it was my grandparents, right? They were the primary owners of our business. My uncle worked there, my dad worked there, and my mom worked there. And so it was kind of like my grandpa ran the show. He had his sons involved in the business, and eventually there was the dynamic where they couldn't get along. Mm-hmm. So one left, my dad stayed. My uncle went and ran a muffler shop. He was more attuned to the automotive
Do you think your uncle was
business.
Happier when he left?
100%.
Okay.
That was his wheelhouse.
Okay.
Fix, repair,
Yeah.
do. And
So it was a better fit
It
for
was a
both
better
parties.
fit. And so my dad stayed. He liked driving trucks. He liked the scrap business.
Mm-hmm.
He liked the business side of it. So he stayed on the scrap end. But that's where the second one. So they're both kind of moving the needle financially. One on the repair side, one on the scrap side, right? Driving
Mm-hmm.
truck. But they couldn't get along, so you had to make a change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's hard to run a business if the people that are in charge or at a management level aren't getting along. And I don't care whether you're friends or family or whatever. If it's a tough atmosphere because the management team can't get along, you're not going to keep anybody good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that
So,
doesn't
which
matter,
means-
family or
That's what
regular.
I mean. So I say when it comes to family, it's even more important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody's got to step in and divide it up, right? And whether that's, hey, you're better at going and doing this, like let's create very clear cut lanes, or you're just not going to fit in what we're trying to do.
That way you're
here.
not trying to work over each other, and then you're not trying to get, the family dynamic can be really sticky in that situation,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So I think that the best thing you can do, especially if you're on the ownership side, is you have if it's creating a true rub, you have got to remove the people that are not contributing to the business.
Mm-hmm.
Friends, family, whoever, right? Like that's your job, that's your duty to the other 10, 20, 50, 100 people that are working there.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a tough decision. It makes Easter tough. It makes Thanksgiving tough.
Yeah.
It makes Christmas tough. But at the end of the day, nobody survives if the business fails.
Yeah.
Financially, everybody goes down with the house. So
And not just that family, 100
people's
100
families,
other
right?
families.
So if you've taken the call of being the owner and you're the guy and it's your money and your livelihood on the line and you're willing to watch the whole ship go down because you can't figure out how to get rid of the people that aren't fitting in with your organization, that's on you.
Yeah.
And I think you got to take onus on that, and you got to take pride in the fact that you are now the guy's got to make that. You get all the glory and you get all the pain, right? Mm-hmm. When it goes good, you're the guy that made
Cuts
the great
both
decisions.
ways. Yeah.
But when it goes bad, you're the guy that made all the bad decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you have got to, as soon as you realize it's not going to be a fit, you either got to get them in their own lane or get them out. Mm-hmm. And I think that over the years, our family business has become more of a friend business because there's nobody in our family that works in our business anymore, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's basically they've come and they've gone, and I've slowly. I don't have a huge family, so that makes it easier.
You didn't have a bunch of siblings that wanted to be in
I
it.
had my sister is a school
Yeah.
teacher. She's great at her job.
So you didn't have to deal with some of that.
Yep. Her husband worked for us for, I think, 10 years. He does something different now. And they're not married anymore, which that made that decision really easy.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's certain decisions that just get made easy for you,
Yeah.
right? Certain ones, like my dad's cousin that worked for us, and I had to fire him, right?
That wasn't a real easy decision.
That wasn't a tough decision because his family, he'd been here for a long time, and he was good for a long time. But we were growing, and we were going in different directions. He wanted one thing, we wanted something else. It was a good time to keep things moving. So I don't know what my sons will do. I don't know what your daughters will do. I don't know what some of our key management kids will do. If someday they want in the business, I think it's on us to give them a shot at it.
Yeah.
I think if there's a fit, if there's a need, and if you can create a clear line of separation. But if not, I mean, I don't feel any obligation either, right? I would like to see some of our people, their family come into it and extend it. But if not, like we're gonna run it like a business.
We'll live on.
Even as friendly as we are, when we walk in here, like we're here to work. We're here
Yeah.
to do what we do, right? We have a good time and we're friends. But at the end of the day, like if the bills aren't paid and if the customers aren't taken care of and the people aren't taken care of,
Yeah.
then fuck, it ain't gonna work. Like we aren't gonna be able to show up on Monday and do Q&A and hang out every day. Like
Yeah.
it ain't gonna happen.
You got to
So,
pay the bills.
take care of business.
You got to make hard decisions.
Most
know-
people know the decisions that need to be made. They just don't make them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in a lot of walks into things in life, not just business, but most people know this is a decision that's got to be made, and it's tough in a small business. It's tough in a small family-owned business. Like,
Have you ever seen? You've talked to enough people in the scrap industry, enough family businesses. What do you think is the biggest number of yards that it's still? What do you would still consider a family business? Like because I think you probably.
I don't think it's a number of yards thing. I think it's it's a ownership percentage, right? Like if you still own a decent percentage, not even necessarily majority, but let's say you own 30% of a huge business and you've got your kids in there and they're in management level positions
then
and
it's
you're the
still a family
CEO. To
business.
me, it still feels like a family business.
Okay.
The family business that we deal with most of
Yeah.
the time are small operators, right? We
Yes.
deal with a lot of small manufacturing businesses that are quote unquote family business. Their wife's the accountant,
Yep.
their daughter or son works on production or whatever the case may be, or in marketing and sales. And so we're still dealing with family businesses every day that are not necessarily in our industry. But I would say generally small businesses probably deal with a majority of small family businesses.
Yes.
A
A lot of mechanic shops or family businesses.
family businesses, right? And I don't think that those family business dynamics are very similar, regardless of an industry, right? I mean, they can be problematic. They can be great. I mean, our business wouldn't be here today if my grandfather hadn't taken the risk to start it, and my dad hadn't taken the risk to partner with Schnitzer at the time and buy him out, and then we wouldn't be here today in this form if my dad hadn't given me an opportunity and taken a risk on me. And so it's like it's a lot of still steeped in family business, and I would still say we're a family business, right?
So that leads me. I was gonna save this till next week, but you led right into it. How do you? That's our.
It's your answer, huh?
How do you handle the stress and the risk of working in this industry, and how do you find the motivation to continue to make massive risk financially to keep growing it for not just you but for all of us? How do you manage stress?
I think that one's like pretty short and sweet for me. I know where it came from, and I know what it took to build it to here. And I think if I had to go back 15 years or 20 years, I think I'm 21 years this year, I think I could do it in 10. Because I think I would know.
You would take more risk. Is that what you're saying?
I think I know what I fucked up on. Like so I can do it. So now it's easier for me to swallow the risk portion because I know I can build it back, right? Whether it looks exactly the same or not, like that's here nor there.
You
right?
can absorb some of the fuck ups.
Well, I know where I know which street to not turn left on.
Yeah.
And go right,
Yeah.
right? And the only reason I know that is 'cause I've lived it and I've done it. I've made a lot of bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
And the goal is to make more good ones than bad ones. And so the risk for me is, I sit next to the accountant, and so he tells me what I can afford and what I can't, and I trust him. If he says no, I say, okay. And then I go at him from another angle, and I say, what about this? And he's like, no. And I say, okay. Until I find the angle that works for him and for me, and I say, can we do it this way? Yes.
Then he'll say maybe. Yeah.
Now, so financially, I sit next to the accountant, right? The CFO. For my dad's case, my mom was the CFO. He had to live with her, right? Slept next to her.
At least you and Brian don't
Yeah,
sleep.
we don't sleep. We don't sleep in the same bed, so our lives are a little bit easier, right? So those tough conversations, we can leave them at the door. But so that's one way. The financial risk, I have really good financial people that I trust their opinion. But as far as the business risk and what we should do and how to deal with that risk is I'm super confident in the people that we have. I'm super confident that I've been doing it long enough now that I can kind of make some bad decisions and recover. And I'm also probably as confident or more that if it all went to zero again, I've lived pretty poorly in my life, and I feel like if I given the opportunity, if someone gave me and said, "Hey, you got to start again," I think I could do it, and I probably could do it quicker than I did it. Right? I'm not saying it would be easy, but I could say I've made enough mistakes that I can stomach it. So that's why I'm comfortable.
You have confidence in yourself, so that kind of can kill the stress level. You know.
Yeah. I'm not afraid to say I made a mistake. I'm not afraid to fuck up something. I don't my ego doesn't depend on whether somebody says I'm doing great or not. Like my ego depends on whether my family's doing good and my kids are healthy and my wife feels taken care of and my friends feel like they have a good gig and so as long as we're all copacetic, then the business is the business. It is what it is.
I love that. Well, everyone, that's episode 2. Keep the questions coming in, though. We'll figure out the best way to get those in, but you guys should be able to reach out to us any way possible. But we'll continue to put some posts out there to get more questions.
One more thing is we have a couple people that have requested to be on the podcast. So we're just right now formatting how to get some boardroom calls with some guests. If you want to be a guest, if you have just a question and you don't want to be a guest, that's great. But for us, it's all about sharing the industry, sharing people that are out there hustling, trying to get stuff done. And this is why we do this podcast, because we love it.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.